Hello everybody and welcome to the N64 Japanese Eye. This is a series where we take a look at the Japanese exclusive N64 titles and try to answer some simple questions. Can you play them as a Western gamer? And also, most importantly, can you enjoy them? For today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at one of my all-time favourite Japanese exclusive titles. This one's a little bit quirky and a little bit different, so let's take a look. Just looking at the front cover really makes me want to pick up the game and find out more about it. The gorgeous anime artwork looks very reminiscent of a Studio Ghibli movie poster, and this continues onto the back of the box. The Japanese text is kept to a minimum, and instead we are left with some more great artwork and screenshots. Opening the box, and the first thing you'll notice is that the game came bundled with a memory card. This is due to the size of the save files, as each file takes 72 pages, which is a huge chunk. For any collectors like myself who only collect complete in box, then you'll have a real challenge. Whilst a box copy shouldn't cost you more than $20 or $30 on the current market, if you want the bundled memory card, then you can add on another $100 or so on top of that. As if the custom memory card label is included in the game, it's crazy to think that this single sticker can be worth at times over $100, but nothing surprises me these days. The manual is also very text light and is packed with full colour pages and some crisp artwork and images, both from the game and hand drawn. So after being enticed into at least checking out the game, the first question you may ask is, what is the game actually about? Well, if one game alone can convince you just how different the Japanese and Western game markets are, then perhaps it's this one. Wonder Project J2 is a follow-up to Wonder Project J, a Super Nintendo release which didn't sell all that well. You don't need to have played that game, but if you have, then you'll be happy to know that a number of characters make a return for this release. Wonder Project J featured a main character called Pino, who was a small robot boy who was created by Dr. Geppetto. In this follow-up, and in a move to attract more male gamers, the lead this time is a female robot called Josette, again created by Dr. Geppetto. But I suppose now would be a good time to talk more about the actual game and what it involves, because Wonder Project J2, like its predecessor, is a life simulation game. As one of the earliest and most little known N64 games, it may surprise you to know that the game was developed by Givro but published by Enix. Yep, the Enix that went on to become Square Enix. You see, before the whole Final Fantasy VII shenanigans and the game being moved to PlayStation, Enix were all well on board developing and publishing for Nintendo's new console. This was the first and only N64 release by the partnership, and whilst it can never live up to Final Fantasy VII, Wonder Project J2 is perhaps one of my favourite N64 games, and one which you really do need to check out. Normally at the end of N64 Japanese Eye episodes, I try to answer the all-important question if a Western gamer can play and enjoy the game. But sadly, unless you can understand Japanese, then you really have absolutely no hope with this game whatsoever. The game is absolutely packed full of text, and every action you make in the game presents you with more of it. However, the game has developed a large underground following, and so much so in fact that the fun's translation began work in 2007. As of now, the patch has been fully completed and it's ready to download and patch your file ready to play the game with all English text. You can use your newly translated and patched file to play the game on an emulator, but if you have an EverDrive 64 like myself, then this file will play on the real N64 console hardware, and it's certainly the way that I suggest playing the game if you can. So with that being said, let's jump into the game and see what it's all about. Well, after a very lengthy intro video, the plot has been set. The antagonist, Masala from Wonder Project J, has made a return, and has been ordered by the Siliconian king to find the girl who lives on Korlo Island and is in possession of the J. The J is an object which has great power and is capable of giving its bearer the power to make dreams come true. On that note, armies are dispatched to find her, and at the same time that Dr. Geppetto dies, just before doing so he sends Josette to Blue Land, where he informs her someone is waiting to help her from a land she cannot see or hear. No surprises, that person is eventually revealed to be you. On arrival in Blue Land, Josette tries to make contact with you, but she quickly learns that she'll need the help of her sidekick Bird, who is an interfacing robot who acts as the translator between you and Josette. Speaking to Josette is just like speaking to a child. She will ask lots of questions, and the branch the game will take will depend on how you answer her questions. For example, very early on in the game she'll notice a gross smell and ask you if it's her. If you say no, she will sigh a breath of relief, but if you say yes, it is her that smells, then this will happen. Josette will learn new skills and abilities through your help and actions. You can buy books to teach her more and to expand her knowledge, which will help her to pick up life lessons more quickly. You can teach her how to cook by buying ingredients and giving her lessons, and this is just one example. The skills she gains as you play have a direct impact on how you play the game, as she will need to learn skills in order to take on jobs around the city. As you make money from the work, you'll need to carefully manage her mood. If she becomes too tired, she won't react well and will lose interest in whatever she is doing. She also gets worn down and requires recharging, which you need to keep a careful eye on, as otherwise her battery will go flat. It's worth remembering that Josette ultimately has a mind of her own, and sometimes she will choose to ignore what you are saying or act like a little brat. As you build up her skill set, she becomes more complete, and with the money you've made you can buy her tools to explore the island. For example, if you want to enter the mines, you'll need a pickaxe in order to mine whilst you are down there. At times the game will break directly into controlled sections, and this helps to break up the point and click style of the rest of the game. Now, unlike Wonder Project J, the game is not linear, and so you're free to roam most of the areas and undertake the learning of skills in pretty much any order you like. You will require certain skills before moving on to some, but these are called achievements in the game, and there are 15 to work through in the first chapter. After you've learnt the required amount of achievements, the game progresses into the second chapter, which, to avoid spoilers, I won't be showing any footage of. In this chapter, Josette undergoes more hardships as she deals with the Siliconian army, and it's certainly a very highly charged and emotively plot-driven chapter. The story, if you can get into it, is second only to Ocarina of Time on the console, and by the time the ending credits roll you'll have a strong connection with Josette, as you had helped her develop from her childlike manner all the way to being an adult and fully grown and understanding the world in which she lives. If you think of the bond you had with your first Pokemon, then it's the same kind of feeling that you'll get here, just doubled in intensity. On the game's release in Japan, the scores were generally positive, however import reviewers here in the West couldn't really get a grasp of the game, and being so text heavy meant that the game slipped past by many. One thing that always got me though was that the magazines of the time said the game wasn't graphically strong. I couldn't disagree more with this. From the opening introduction to the beautiful locations, I think the game looks awesome. The sprites look the part, and anyone who had a strong affiliation with games of the 16-bit era will appreciate how the game looks and feels. Each of the locations you explore looks and feels completely different. One minute you could be in the local park listening to the songs of the birds, or playing your blue ocarina which is tied around Josette's neck, to the next area where you'll be in a seedy alleyway and everything turns a little darker. Everything feels alive, and whilst the game isn't packed full of non-playable characters, they do help to drive the story forward without you ever feeling like you need to keep talking to the same people to get the story to progress. The animation is also fun and lively, with Josette often doing crazy little things to entertain herself, and if you don't interact with her she will often act out. The level of animation is solid, and whilst at times it can appear to be limited, you'll no doubt love the over-the-top expressions and actions if you're a fan of Japanese animation. The soundtrack is also quite serene. It's relaxing and not too taxing on your ears, which is a good thing, especially as you'll soon start sinking hours into the game if it grips you. The game's soundtrack was also released on CD during the game's original release in Japan, but you can find it quite easily online these days. The sound effects are also quite solid. There's not all that much in there, but the reaction noises of Josette are entertaining and rarely become annoying, and if you've played many Enix games then you'll instantly feel at home here. I think the game also controls really well, but I certainly wish they would have added support for a mouse, as the game is very point and click inspired. It's a shame that the N64 mouse wasn't out until a few years later, as the game would have greatly benefited from it. But with the standard N64 controller, the game is responsive as much as I hoped it would be, and once you learn the basics during the initial tutorial sequence, then things become second nature. Do you remember the minute that you completed Ocarina of Time? That sense of satisfaction, and yet at the same time sadness. On the one hand, you were actually really happy to complete the game, but at the same time you were left with a sense of sadness that it was all over. Well, that's kind of how I felt when I finished Wonder Project J2. Of course, for me nothing would compare to Zelda, but with the N64 having so many short arcade-style games, it was nothing but a pleasure and memorable experience getting myself engrossed in this game and losing hours of my life just exploring and interacting with the world in which the game takes place. As a kid, I remember the game looking so cool, I thought, and being sad that I knew it would never come out in the West. With modern technology, I finally not only got to play the game, but I got to experience it in a way I never thought would have been possible. The English translation is perfect, and the work of Ryu in bringing the patched translation to the world means that the whole new legion of people can play the game for the first time. If you do just one thing this weekend, please try out this game. Of course, there will be some of you who won't like it and will likely not care for it at all. But if this episode has even slightly piqued your interest in the game, then it could be a great gaming experience you never thought that you would experience. But now it's over to you. If you've never played the game before, how do you think it looks and sounds? Do you like the graphical style, and has the idea behind the game piqued your interest? Or are simulation type games not really your thing, and like some reviewers of the time, do you find the concept a little creepy? Or if you've played the game, let me know your thoughts. I'm sure I'm not the only one who loves this game, so anyone who has played it, sound off in the comments down below, and as always, let's have a discussion about today's game. As always, thanks so much for watching, and until next time.